Vivek Ramaswamy jumps into Ohio's governor's race. Welcome to Columbus on the Record. I'm Mike Thompson. The 2026 race for governor is gaining another major official candidate. Former Republican presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy has filed preliminary paperwork to run for governor, and he plans to publicly launch his campaign this coming week with a tour around the state. This, of course, is no surprise. The Cincinnati native, who now lives just outside Columbus, has been toying with the idea since he dropped out of the presidential race. He's thought to be a favorite of President Trump, but, the president's favorite things are subject to change. Ramaswamy joins Attorney General Dave Yost as the two major Republicans seeking to succeed Mike DeWine. Mike Gonidakis, another outsider jumping into statewide big office politics in Ohio. Will Ramaswamy have the same success as J.D. Vance and Bernie Moreno?
Maybe. It's always up to the voters, in this case, Republican primary voters, but it's an exciting time. Look, Vivek is already headlining, I think, 35 or so Republican Lincoln Day dinners, big events in our counties, in all 88 counties. So he has a tremendous star power, not just here in Ohio, but nationally. He spent over $40 million on a campaign for president. And if you follow him on social media, you can see that many Americans of the Trump base gravitate to his liking and what he has to say. Look, he invited me to his home last week. We sat down. He presented his bold vision for Ohio. It was exciting to see. He's young, as you said, energetic, 39-year-old family of four. And, I think he's going to bring a lot to the table. I believe Elon Musk will probably endorse him here, maybe even next week, maybe not, but I think it'll come sooner rather than later. So he has a leg up. He's wildly well-known, and the Trump base likes him, and that's important.
If Elon Musk endorses him, Herb, does that help Vivek Ramaswamy right now?
In a week or two, maybe less. You might not want that endorsement.
But what do you think about his candidacy? I mean, he's sort of come out of nowhere in the past 2 years.
The common thing I'm hearing about Vivek from Republicans who are more traditional or establishment is it'll be easy for Democrats to attack him, even though the Democrats are so weak. And that is, Vivek will do for Ohio what Elon Musk is doing for the country. And that could have very different meanings to different people. So my own sense is that, again, assuming the Democrats could ever get a candidate and get their act in order, I'd rather run against Vivek than John Husted did if he had been the nominee, and probably even run against him rather than Dave Yost.
Jake, does Vivek Ramaswamy's chances hinge on how President Trump's popularity fares over the next 2 years?
I couldn't predict 2 years into the future, but I think that Vivek has this real knack for attention. He's good at keeping it. He's good at basking in it, really, and I think that's really the currency of politics today, and I think he understands that.
So what does Dave Yost need to do to be competitive? Herb?
He would have to go after Ramaswamy and decide on what grounds do you go after him. Do you go after him because he's not one of us, he's out of touch, he's arrogant, he's elitist and all of that? And I don't know whether Yost has that in his stomach to really go after him. He can't move further to the right of Ramaswamy. Ramaswamy is, I think as Mike said, does have a lot of support from the Trump base or whatever. So Dave Yost has to figure out what is my lane. And I'm not sure he's yet there.
Yeah, David, Darlene Yost are personal friends of mine, and don't underestimate Dave at all. And he's going to work hard. He cares passionately about Ohio, and he's in this race. This is his last go-around, most likely, and he'll do everything he can to differentiate himself. And Herb's right. I don't think he can go right of Vivek, but Dave's got to find a lane and an avenue to attract those Trump voters that are going to be pretty hardcore behind Vivek.
Is it, Jake? I mean, in the Senate race when J.D. Vance won, and then even the Bernie Moreno race in the primary, they were falling over themselves, the candidates, to get the Trump endorsement. Is the Trump endorsement a done deal, do you think, for Vivek Ramaswamy now?
No, I don't think it's a done deal at all. And I think that the macro political climate is really going to be a major determinant here. I mean, the federal government is being almost ripped up to zero and completely reorganized. The outcome of that could entirely turn this race. Maybe there's a huge backlash that comes. Maybe there's a new way to approach federal government, and you want to be, I mean, who knows if you want affiliation with the Trump administration in 2 years?
I would say respectfully, remember Donald Trump won Ohio not once, not twice, but 3 times, this last time by 12%. 12% in the state of Ohio, because he stood up and told the American people and Ohioans, I'm going to rip up federal government. I'm going to do all this if you vote for me. And we did, and we asked for guys like Elon Musk to come in and help fix a broken system. So this is what Ohioans, maybe not in other states, but Ohioans want. So I think the Trump currency is strong today, and it will be in 2 years.
The other name that's out there, and now he has a website, Jim Tressel for Governor. So he's more than keeping his options open. He's got a website. I assume he's probably got a fundraising link on there. I haven't seen it, but that's what. Herb, does Tressel, how does he fit into this three-way race, if it becomes a three-way race?
Well, it's interesting you refer to Ramaswamy as the outsider. I think actually of Jim Tressel as being the outsider, and the outsider that you can like, that you can relate to, that he actually truly is in Ohio. And I think actually he'd be a very strong candidate.
You know, I'm rooting for Jim Tressel to be a great lieutenant governor, because John Husted was a great lieutenant governor, brought a lot of jobs to Ohio, and that's what we need right now. We need a strong number 2 to our number 1, Governor Mike DeWine. But in order to do that, you have to do the job. You can't turn around and start running in all 88 counties, going to Lincoln Day dinners in Meigs County and all over the place. Jim Tressel, congratulations, you're our lieutenant governor. Please go do your job.
That's what politicians do, Mike. Dave Yost is going to do that. Keith Faber is going to do that. Frank LaRose is going to do that. You know, the Congress people looking for re-election are going to do that. This is part of the game, right?
It is, but keep in mind that Dave Yost has been doing his job very well for the past 6-7 years. He has a staff of 800-900 people to do that. Jim Tressel is one person with a staff of maybe 2 or 3. He needs to focus on jobs in our state as opposed to running for governor.
So, Jake, what's the thought at the State House? Is he definitely going to run, Jim Tressel?
I don't think anyone knows. Like, I think we're 2 years out from this election, but I think he's given these very
Primary is about a
wishy-washy.
year and 2 months away, though.
He's given wishy-washy statements. If you look, he said, "Well, I'm not running for governor, but I'm also not running for governor." So interpret that as you will.
The more Mike DeWine showcases Jim Tressel, and the more he gives him to do, and he does successfully, good government will be good campaigning.
But Mike DeWine's not always popular in the Republican base,
No,
though, in the state.
I'm not saying he has to endorse so publicly.
And keep that in mind that Jim Tressel can't veer off the Mike DeWine cheerleading bandwagon. He can't go out and say anything negative. He's got to support Mike DeWine.
Does Mike DeWine endorse in this race, do we think? He would have endorsed John Husted, you'd think.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does he endorse now, or does he stay out of it? What do you think?
I think he'll weigh in one last time. This is his last go around.
Towards the end, maybe, yeah.
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 Well, after the primary, of course you're going to endorse, but before the primary, we shall see. Anyway, Elon Musk's so-called government efficiency department continues to cut federal spending, as we mentioned. It's going agency to agency, laying off workers. There are reports of Ohio-based workers losing their jobs. The president and Congress are also looking to cut spending through the legislative process as well. Many suspect Congress will try to cut Medicaid spending. If that happens and Ohio gets less federal money for the health insurance program for the disabled and low-income people, hundreds of thousands of Ohioans could lose benefits. They now benefit from the expansion of Medicaid that was part of Obamacare. Jake Zuckerman, this is what opponents to this expansion predicted or feared would happen, is the federal government would pull back and the state would be left holding the bag and having to pay more. Is that what's possibly could happen here?
It's what possibly could happen, but what I'd add is the way the language in the budget reads right now is if the federal government drops it by as much as 1%, then Ohio is just going to nix health insurance for 771,000 people. So there's not some consideration here of, oh, well, the federal government is decreasing funding by some marginal percentage. We can find the money in the couch cushions. This is a wholesale, these people are off, and this is a massive, massive program.
Mike, a lot of folks who voted for Donald Trump are taking advantage of this expansion program. What does it do if that gets cut?
Keep in mind, back in 2011, when Kasich and the late Bill Batchelder implemented Medicaid expansion in the state of Ohio, it was supposed to be for pregnant women, women and children only. That's it. It's fast forward to 2024. We have our rolls are full with people, able-bodied adults, whether they be men or women, that shouldn't be on it, that should be out. Look, I think Americans, Ohioans, believe in temporary assistance, but not by way of lifestyle. We need to make sure that people that are on it, that shouldn't be on it, are off of it. We need to make sure that we're doing the right thing for the people that need it, not for everyone else. If there's 700,000 people that should be working and finding their own health care, then go for it.
Most of these folks are working. They're making $44,000 a year. That's for a family of 4. Most of them are working, at least part-time. I mean, this could blow back on office holders.
Trump voters love Trump. They expect changes. I don't think they expect to be hurt so directly by decisions of Elon Musk. And whether that's in your health care, whether that's in public safety, whether it's in any areas, whether it's in fact, turns out the economy goes in the tank because of tariffs. That's not what they expected. We want a change agent, but we thought there could be a change agent who in fact could make changes that would benefit us. And I think, we're waiting to see what happens in a lot of these areas. And I think that's a risk for any candidate who gets too close to Donald Trump and Elon Musk.
Signs of second thoughts. Troy Balderson told the Westerville Chamber of Commerce this week that perhaps Donald Trump's budget cutting, Elon Musk's budget cutting, is getting out of control, Jake. Congresspeople, senators are getting calls from their constituents, probably a lot of Democrats calling them, but still, they're getting calls and they're seeing how this could impact their constituents.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are two things happening. For one, there are just these very real budget cuts. There are people who had jobs in government yesterday and don't today. And then there's this institutional problem of it's Congress that created these agencies. It's the Congress that gave them force and gave them money. And now you have a president coming in and saying, I don't like that agency, they're gone. You have someone like Elon Musk, not even confirmed by the Senate. He's doing the same thing. So you have that dynamic. And back on the point of Medicaid, something worth pointing out here is Medicaid disproportionately covers people who are in Ohio's rural economies, places Donald Trump won huge margins, 30, 40 points. And some of the biggest people hurt are going to be the hospitals there, which are not only some of the only places you can get to for health care within 45 minutes to an hour's drive, but are some of the biggest employers in those counties.
Yeah, let's be clear. No one's been hurt yet. Okay, there hasn't been. No one's lost their Medicaid. No one's lost their Social Security. A lot of fear mongering going on by people that don't like Donald Trump. The media is really good at that. But at the end of the day,
It's a possibility, right?
A possibility any day of the week. We could go bankrupt too if we don't fix our federal government. Look, our biggest expense is our federal taxes. How many families weren't able to send their kids to a good college, or the college their kid wanted to go because they couldn't afford it, or buy their dream house because they couldn't afford it? But yet Stacey Abrams has got access to $2 billion of our tax dollars, and we can go on about this, that, and the other, all these other foreign aids that's going on. Americans are sick and tired of being sick and tired. We're willing to take a little bit of pain to fix the government so we don't have these people, millionaires, multimillionaires, living off the public dime.
A very different narrative would be, why is it the case that the rank and file citizenry is paying the cost of many of these cuts when in fact some of that money is being freed up so you can afford a tax cut for people who are the wealthiest in society? And I think at some point when more Americans recognize, wait a second, this isn't fair. I expected Donald Trump to look out after me, not to look out after Elon Musk and his cronies. And I think if it ever gets to that stage, then, it's a liability for Republicans.
We shall see. Ohio lawmakers face a dilemma as they work to pass a state budget over the next 2 years. How do they continue to support traditional public schools while at the same time pay for the state's rapidly expanding private school voucher program? Governor DeWine's budget proposal tries to do that, but the Independent Legislative Service Commission says DeWine's budget would cut $100 million from traditional public school districts while increasing funding for the voucher program by more than $260 million. Charter schools would see a more than $200 million boost. Herb Asher, $500 million boost for charters and vouchers, a small decrease for traditional public schools. Can the state afford to support all three legs of that stool?
They will find a way to do it. There's been a game that's been played over decades in Ohio. And when you get a state budget and legislators start looking at the budget, one of the first things they want to look at is, how are my local school districts doing? Are they getting more money or less money? It doesn't matter whether districts are growing or shrinking or whatever. They want to know what the bottom line is. And so there is some evidence here that some of the public school districts are going to be hurt. Well, they're going to probably let their voices be heard to the governor. And do you think that's possible that they will discover $100 million or $200 million later on in the budget process? Will they change the revenue estimates? I think they're going to have to take care of the public schools, and then whatever happens with the private schools will be okay if the public, from somebody's perspective, it will be okay as long as the public schools are taken care of.
But Jake, House Speaker Matt Huffman says it is not sustainable. They might be able to fix it this year, but long term, it's going to be, they can't do both.
Yeah, I think that's true. And there's also a point that the governor's office has made here that's worth repeating, which is that the money's got to follow the students. And as you have more students leaving the public school system into private schools and charters, the money should follow them. That brings you into this problem of what happens to the public schools. You can't allocate, you can't shrink a building size by 10% and its functions by 10% so neatly. But I would point out that the budget is, as you've hinted, in its very early stages, and there's a lot of negotiation to come.
Yeah.
So, Mike, did they underestimate how much these private school voucher program was going to cost? Because we're up to well over $200 million. I mean, I don't know what it is now.
When they created the
It's a lot more
legislation, it applied to everyone. They didn't just say for some people, everyone could get access, but it's based on income, so you're not getting full rack rate. But let's keep in mind, guys, words matter. Charter schools are public schools. Okay, well, private schools like Columbus Academy that charge outrageous tuition to go to third grade, they're not getting any of our state tax dollars. Charter schools are public schools, and kids
getting vouchers, though?
Yes, but people that are sending their kids to Columbus Academy are very wealthy, and they
But
might
they
be
get
getting
vouchers. They get
maybe
graduated,
500,
but
maybe
yeah.
it's 500 a year,
Yeah.
and so be it if that's what it is. My kids go to public schools. But the point of the matter is if, as Curb said so well, Professor, that if kids are gravitating from failing schools like Columbus Public and going to other schools, charter, which are public schools, or DeSales, like a Catholic school, and DeSales full of Columbus Public kids now, which is a good thing, then that's what we should be putting the money to.
The breakdown here, and we need to have more information, what's happening to our rural public schools? You had mentioned before that the healthcare issues in Medicaid will impact the rural areas. I think when you look carefully at the school funding, you'll find that the rural districts are the ones that are really being hurt. The urban districts aren't short of money. I mean, they have other problems, but and so if you have a double whammy, you might lose some of your health care coverage in the rural district, and your school funding is not. And you can say to rural districts, well, there's too many of you. You need to consolidate. That's the whole identity of some of these rural counties.
Yeah, and there are not as many private school offerings to use the vouchers in the rural areas.
Yeah.
Uncertainty continues over who will run the computer chip factories under construction in New Albany. Bloomberg and the Wall Street Journal report 2 companies are investigating taking over parts of Intel. The company Broadcom reportedly is looking at the chip design and marketing side of Intel. And Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, TSCM, is looking at the manufacturing side of Intel. The Journal reports no formal offers are on the table yet. As Intel faces business problems, the factory project has suffered delays. The original plan had the first factories running sometime this year. It now could be 2030 before that facility is operational. Mike Onidakis, the point was to build these plants in the United States, have a U.S. company making these chips, and now a Taiwanese company could be making the chips.
Yeah, that's quite interesting, Mike.
It's not what we planned.
Not what we planned, and I think we're all scratching our heads. We are, regardless of where you fall in what aisle. But I hate to say it this way, but Intel's too big to fail. Whether it gets broken up or what, and this project's too big to fail here in Ohio. We have put tremendous amount of our personal tax dollars into it, resources both at the federal with President Biden and Sherrod Brown and others, and Republicans, of course, as well. Mike DeWine, John Husted. So the bottom line is that, whether it's design, manufacturing, we have to build this plant. And I hope an American company owns it, not a foreign national company, but it's interesting times right now.
The construction is continuing out there. There's it's going to get built, right? They're not going to.
Sure.
There are
Well,
sunk costs, and companies could walk away, but we're pretty far down the
Well,
road.
if a Taiwanese company owns it, we immediately come to the thought, what happens when Taiwan is no longer, does that mean a Chinese communist company will own it? No, it's scary because we did make a major investment and we did it with good intentions and with the best information available. But, oftentimes states do the best they can and they're buffered by international forces, national forces, and this could turn out to be a disaster. It could also turn out to be very good. The one benefit, presumably, that we know of is that we're identifying Ohio as part of the tech revolution. We're the new Silicon Valley of the Midwest or whatever. But
what
that's
do they call it? Silicon Heartland, Silicon Valley, or Silicon Heartland? Is that still going to happen, Jake? I mean, there's some clouds over the Silicon Heartland.
It doesn't look great. I don't know. I mean, a CEO's gone. That's never a good sign. I don't think news stories like this are particularly helpful for anyone. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the stock price it's leveled off, I think, with the change in management for Intel, And you see those cranes. When you drive out 161, you can see them from the road. This thing is going up. Whose name is on it is the question. And any regrets on the state lawmakers' side? Probably not yet.
Not yet. I don't. Yeah. I don't like
You could still have a completed project just behind schedule.
Yeah. All right. Our last topic. When it does become operational, that factory will need a lot of power, as do the growing number of data centers popping up around the state. Nearly 20 years ago, Ohio lawmakers passed a law that required a portion of Ohio's energy to come from renewable sources. Lawmakers scrapped that mandate as part of the scandalous nuclear bailout law known as HB 6. And since then, utility regulators say ratepayers have paid hundreds of millions of dollars to subsidize 2 coal-powered plants. And Cleveland.com reports this week, Ohio ratepayers have contributed more than $60 million for solar power generation, but only a fraction of that money has actually gone to build solar farms. Jake Zuckerman, you wrote about this week. What's going on with the solar money? It's sitting there in an account and it's not being used.
Yeah, just about everything that was added to House Bill 6 that wasn't the nuclear plants was an instrument added to get the bill to pass. And in this case, there was a very narrow carve out. Only 6 projects, I believe, are eligible for the money. But what ended up happening is you had $64 million taken from Ohioans. It's now sitting in a state account. Only $8 million has actually gotten out the door to projects that have produced enough power and reported it to the state. And the rest is just kind of hanging around. And right now, lawmakers are negotiating. I think they're pretty established that they're going to get rid of the collections, get rid of the remittances. But what do you do with the $54 or so million laying around?
Any thoughts of perhaps allowing other solar farms to use it?
No, and I don't know that the industry needs it. I don't know that what's holding solar back in Ohio has anything to do with the lack of funds. The industry's booming. I think the big problem with solar in Ohio is that 1 in 4 counties have taken pretty much countywide votes to say we will not have renewable development here. And any project that you have in the development queue is susceptible for what amounts to a veto from townships or county commissions.
So is renewable energy, I don't want to say is it dead in Ohio, or is it just never going to get off the ground in Ohio?
It's on a weak foundation. And it's sad because I think a lot of us would say a good energy policy is sort of all of the above. And that would be natural gas, and it would be nuclear, and it would be solar, and it'd be wind. But in fact, in Ohio, again, historically, we are so traditionally committed to fossil fuels, coal, and it's sad. Other states are going to just eat our lunch. And when we start having these blackouts or whatever, and we know this is going to happen because, so you see what's coming down the road, and it just amazes me that we can't just simply say, let's do most of the above.
Mike DeWine has said, I'm for all of the above. A lot of Republican politicians say we're all for all of the above. Why not put our money where our mouth is and do all of the above?
Yeah, it's the single biggest issue. I think it might not be the sexiest, but it's the single biggest issue facing our state because, as Professor Asher said, other states are going to eat our lunch. They are eating our lunch right now. The Googles, the Amazons, the Metas that are building now, they're going to stop because they don't have access to enough energy. We can't build more housing. We can't build more anything without better energy. We need more nuclear. Look, I know everyone gets scared. I don't want it in my backyard. Don't get me wrong. Not in my backyard. But we need more nuclear. But we can do it all of the above. I think the renewables would come at the end of the line, in my opinion. We live in a state that I don't think is as adaptive to that. But I think the legislature, after this budget, really needs to sit down, leave the lobbyists out of the room, and come up with a plan that works.
How about when you give a tax abatement to a data center, they have to put solar panels on the roof? I mean, is that a possibility? Are data centers doing that? I don't even know.
There are some of the big data centers, like Amazon owns a bunch of solar farms in Ohio. But right now, the way things are going with how hard we've made it to develop wind and solar, I mean, there's a gas plant in New Albany there's a data center in New Albany that's trying to add a gas plant on site. I mean, just for that data center, a locally owned natural gas-fired power plant. That's enough power to power tens of thousands of people's homes, and instead it's all going into one data center.
Herb, that you can frack anywhere you want in the state, but you can't put a solar farm anywhere you want, according to state law.
Just amazing, and we let that happen, and it shouldn't happen. I mean, again, for the benefit of the state, we need to. But again, this is so historical. You would know this. I mean, the utilities, the extraction industries dominated the state. we're still living with that legacy.
Yeah. All right, let's get to our final off-the-record parting shots. Mike Otadakis, you're up first.
On his way out the door, Senator Sherrod Brown and his staff purposely deleted files, open cases, and deleted all their computer systems for when Bernie Moreno walked in. So veterans, senior citizens that had Social Security issues, there was nothing for them on day one when Bernie came in with his constituent team. And that's a shame because there's a lot of Ohioans hurting right now because Sherrod Brown deleted everything. Why did he do that? Someone needs to ask those questions.
Herb.
I do think Jim Tressel will run for governor, and the theme will be, let me save you from Ramaswamy being the Elon Musk of Ohio.
Okay. Jake.
Budget testimony is often boring, but there was almost a push-up contest this week between Ohio's cabinet director and a state lawmaker, Haraz Ganbari. We were this close.
Okay. They, on the floor, they're going to do how many push-ups they could do?
It was going to be from the podium, but Haraz Ganbari said, and I quote, he declined because his biceps could not fit.
Okay, then. Speaking of sports, the Big Ten, of course, is now the Big 18. And further evidence that times have changed, they will hold their media day, not in Chicago, not in Indianapolis, not in Cleveland, but in Las Vegas, Nevada. How college sports are changing right before our eyes here in Ohio and around the country. Anyway, that is Columbus on the Record for this week. Continue the conversation on Facebook. And don't forget, you can watch us anytime on your time. You can watch us at our website, wosu.org/COTR. We're also on YouTube, and you can get us on the PBS video app. For our crew and our panel, I'm Mike Thompson. Have a good week.